Hello, we're back for the third episode. This is Colin Keeley here.
I'm Brent Sanders.
And Jackie McNamara.
Well done.
And Brent and I are the founders of Avocado, and Jackie is our first real enterprise or pro customer. So we'll dive into more of her experience with it today.
So just some background here. Jackie and I know each other personally. We got started talking about Avocado a couple of months ago, right? I've known about Theory of Me for a while. I know a high level of about the business, but I think we got started chatting over, an outdoor gathering in COVID times and talking about audio courses and how it might be a fit. And yeah, and so since then, you've been using our platform. I think this is your second month on the platform for one of your engagements. Maybe you could give us a brief background of Theory of Me.
Yeah, sure. So Theory of Me was started really without intention. So I've always been in the world of corporate wellness. I've been doing it for a lot of years, I guess almost 20 years now, if I want to age myself. But I've always been passionate about sports and human performance and well-being. And so I kind of just followed that. So the job that I had at the time wanted more content around human performance. And I just started doing some research and did a couple trainings here and there on my own, and became certified to teach like the most basic human performance courses for the for the company that I worked for. And I loved doing it. It was by far, of all the things in wellness I had done, it was so interesting to me just to think about human capacity and how we barely tap into that. So I just became fascinated with the research around it and used the company that I was working for as my first little pilot. The way that I wanted to deliver the content, the company just wasn't set up for it. So, just talking with friends about the idea, one of my friends owned a wedding planning business out in California, and she invited us out to do just a human performance course, really. Just come out, we're having a retreat. If you can come and talk for 2 hours on it, that's all we're looking for. And I did, and they wanted more than 2 hours, and then they wanted me to stay another day, and the conversation just kept going, and it really just was initiated and evolved so naturally that, afterwards I felt like there could be so much more if I actually planned it. So it took a couple of years. Yeah, so it took a couple of years to plan it and use that group, to help develop the program and get feedback. And today the course exists as true human performance. So it's a lot of different things with wellness: mindfulness, sleep, nutrition, aligning your everyday values to your purpose, cognitive health, accountability. So just, a lot of different components to both physical and emotional well-being. Since about 5 years ago, when I delivered that first workshop, I've been doing in-person workshops at other organizations. In-person is by far my favorite because I love the connection. That's really where I think I thrive as a facilitator too. So, more recently, Avocado has obviously been a great help because it's been able to help me keep that alive, even though we can't be there in person. So it's a little bit about Theory of Me.
So pre-COVID, was it all in person? Did you have any recorded segments, or can you describe your business?
Yeah, so it was all in person. Every client asked us for something more scalable. We just, my mindset was very focused on the content and what we were doing, and not so much the technology behind it. So that was definitely not one of our strong suits. We were always looking for something, but I think just never felt like it would deliver the content the way that we wanted it to. So we hadn't done anything through technology up until just a couple months ago.
And have you always been in coaching? Like before your prior, the business that you're working for, that, developed Theory of Me out of, like, were you doing coaching before that, or was this at that time? Or tell me about that.
Yeah. So, my background is in kinesiology and holistic nutrition therapy. And my first real job out of grad school was at the Cleveland Clinic. So I worked for Dr. Roizen. He is the chief medical officer at the Cleveland Clinic, doing health coaching for a startup out of the clinic called Enforcer E-Coaching, and he owned that company. That was all about, diet and remaining healthy, meeting 10,000 steps a day, really focused on the physical aspect of it. But I did become a coach through that. More recently have focused on and become certified in emotional health coaching. And so that has helped round all of that out. But I've been doing coaching for almost about 10 years now.
Excellent. And so, obviously pre-COVID, things changed. We talked about Avocado as it was, kind of being built and sort of towards another end. We were kind of more of a marketplace at the time and trying to just publish courses. What made you think audio would be a platform for you? Like how were you able to adapt the coursework to audio?
Yeah. Well, about 3.5 years ago, I went to a conference on mindfulness in San Francisco, and I attended a session by a gentleman who runs a healthy technology company in Silicon Valley. And he said something, well, his entire presentation was mind-blowing, but it was really just about how technology taps into the vulnerabilities of the human mind, and we can let it take over our lives, right? So we need to make sure we don't do that. And that really stuck with me for a long time. So I've had a really hard time asking people to sit in front of a computer even longer to watch another session. And so that's kind of one of the reasons we haven't committed. So Brent, when you were telling me about Avocado and audio learning, I loved that concept because, I listen to podcasts and other things when I walk or run or if I'm in the car. So to me, that was the way to get away from technology in the vulnerable sense and be able to really get the true value out of it as it's meant to be. So I think, for me, I had to find a way to get that content and make it available on Avocado. As you know, that's still something that we're learning to do and get better at. But I think definitely breaking down our big program into small bits has been the best way for our learners to, hear and retain that information. So we've just been working to take what was like a full 2-day workshop full of content and break it up into smaller courses on Avocado.
Neat. Yeah. So the way that it worked, you still did end up did you do some in person for, we built a new feature on Avocado, just to give a context. We built this concept of cohorts where you can basically run like a couple hundred people through a program where each week a new course, new lesson. No, it was a new course releases. There's lessons in the course. And you tied that, I believe, with Zoom meetings, right?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, that's been an evolution too. So we tied that with Zoom meetings and kicked off each week with a Zoom call followed by the audio learning. That way we could still have the connection. Yet to be determined if Zoom is the best platform, but it was a great way for us to develop a good foundation on that week's course and then give them like bits and pieces of additional information throughout the week. I think that it just helps them practice what they're supposed to every day and keep them accountable until we meet again live the next week.
Yeah. It was, I listened to a couple of the lessons, and it was like definitely great material if you wanted to go for like a 30-minute walk and actually like do some work on yourself a little bit, the homework that you need to kind of think through. It's interesting. It's obviously you got to do in person would be ideal, but for the time being, it's just not safe, right? It's like the safe way to go is to get on a Zoom call or whatever. And I think that everyone's feeling that stress right now. It's October 22nd today. We're in the thick of everything's getting colder. COVID's on everyone's mind. It would be great to get away from a screen entirely, but it's kind of a trap.
It's interesting because I've talked to a lot of people who have said that, they didn't want COVID, they hated it at first, but it taught them a way to tap into their business that they hadn't even considered before. And that's definitely where we are. One of the things that we'll be moving forward with in the future is utilizing human performance ambassadors. So having guests join those audio sessions to help us deliver that content in a meaningful way. So it could be anyone from a doctor to a teacher or a human performance expert, maybe someone who is in the military, just to talk about their specific experience with it. And we wouldn't have that opportunity if we were there live and in person only, you know?
Excellent.
So I think in that sense, it's that piece of the business we see being very, just growing a lot, and we wouldn't have considered it before.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
How are you thinking which content to be live and which content to be recorded in audio?
I think we're still figuring that out, to be honest. We have a core language around each of the modules. So we are delivering 1 hour of content live for each module. So for example, like the movement module, you get 1 hour live. We probably have about 20 hours of content for that module. And so we kind of pick and choose based on our clientele, what portion of that content we're going to deliver in that 1 hour. And then any additional pieces that we can follow up through the audio course. So we really do tailor the content itself to our client. But I think we're still trying to figure that piece out too. Ideally, we'll be using Avocado to really, like I said, tap into those ambassadors and maybe do, interviews of psychologists and experts who have done further research in each of the modules.
I like that a lot. So in online courses, people call that making like a prismatic experience. So you bring in all these different thought
good word.
leaders.
Prismatic.
Yeah, I'm writing that down.
Yeah.
Oh, that's badass.
And then you can arrive at the truth if you have all these different viewpoints.
Yeah, that's killer.
I love
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
So I think
go ahead.
One of the things you asked, which I thought would be good to share, is just, you said, how would I sell Avocado to other audio creators? And I think, I'm definitely not an expert in this, but I would say, like, in my mind, it was such a hard concept to understand until I did it. And then it felt very easy. It was like the anxiety that I was holding because I didn't know what that would entail kept me from moving forward. It was just like the unknown was too scary.
I might have psyched you out though. I don't know. I remember being like, hey, make sure you set enough time to and that's purely a reflection of myself. Whenever I try to record a course, it's a lot of like, let me, it's like recording your, nobody has answering machines anymore, but like your voicemail message, and you do it like 10 times and you hear yourself and you're like, God, I sound awful. That's the experience for me. So I'm glad you had an easier time of it.
It's funny though, because my first session was like that. I tried to make it perfect. And then I think, we did our first interview with an expert. And what I figured out is it's more fun if it's conversational, so just like chill. And definitely deliver podcast style like this, where you have questions and you kind of know what you're going to talk about, but the conversation can really go anywhere. So, but I think just, my advice would be, if it feels intimidating, start with something small or a sample, and I think you'll learn pretty quickly that it's something you can completely manage on your own and be fine.
That's good advice. I think I always think of this as like, it's a daunting task. I mean, a lot of what we did at first was getting creators that had video and just converting that. But like your content really, I think it reaches, obviously it's a curated course and it's, a mix of formats and it's not only audio, but still because it's audio first, it feels like you're talking to me, right? It feels much more like you're in my ear, and it's a really nice experience. So that to me is the big difference. I mean, so I think your content lends itself really well, because it from what I remember of the lessons that I did listen to, they were like, hey, think about these things and think about, ways that you can, attain these goals, put these things into practice, like reminders to just, do the work that you're learning about doing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I think in my mind, what I thought was challenging like this wasn't really. When I think about the experience with COVID and the doors that it opened up, it's crazy. But when I think about other creators and being able to have this option, like I feel like anybody who's teaching anything could use the platform in a way that's meaningful. And again, I just think of podcasts and how many people listen and why we like listening. I think part of it is it's like a judgment-free way to learn. You don't see anybody. You kind of
Yeah.
formulate in your mind what they look like. Have you ever done that where you're listening to somebody and then all of a sudden you're listening for years and then you see them and you're like, they look like that?
Yeah, exactly.
So you're kind of honed in more on the important stuff, which is what you're hearing, nothing else to distract from that.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on, so obviously we want to find more Theory of Me's. We want to find more people like you as we grow this business. How, especially in the COVID times, how do we reach more Theory of Me's, companies like yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. I know that there are a lot of different companies who are doing like the PowerPoint style deliveries, right? But I think even in any organization, it's a great way to learn. So I think about the other corporations that I worked for and learning in organizational development and the content that you watch and how many PowerPoints you have to see. And I really feel like it could be of course, I'm going to like the wellness mindset, but it's a great way to encourage employees to listen, but move while they're doing that, right? So like some companies now have walking paths, or, you can walk outside on the sidewalk while you're listening to these things. So first and foremost, I feel like the content is probably already living in most of these companies and they don't have the best way of connecting their employees to it. So I think even just knowing that this is available and being able to sell it as the new way of learning, because it's not tapping into the vulnerabilities of your mind. It's the right way to use technology,
Right. Yeah. It's the new old way of learning, right? We always go back to
Exactly.
This is like the original way of learning. It's just voice.
That's exactly right.
What do you, as you look ahead to we got a new year coming, hopefully things are going to get, better from a pandemic perspective, but what do you see as the challenges ahead for you in your business?
Yeah. I think in wellness in general, we struggle a lot with proving that it's beneficial. There's a lot of like, yes, this probably contributed to, your health or your decrease in, medical spend. There's not a lot of exact numbers. So I would love to, and we're considering partnering with, a few organizations that offer like true individual results, kind of like an Apple Watch, but maybe like a step above that, where you're really getting details on sleep and, the sleep zones and how often you spend time in those.
I would love that.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, sorry to interrupt, but I gotta say, Colin is like the biggest sleep monitor I know, and he swears by. What's the ring that you have?
The Oura Ring.
Yeah,
I'm obsessed with it. So I've had like every health tracker since like the Nike Fuel Band.
Stop it.
The first one to actually change my behavior, because you could actually see like, having that last drink at night really just destroys everything. You're resting on it.
But it's so good.
Totally. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's interesting because, like our business model right now is to deliver workshops, and in January we'll be starting health coaching with that. So along with the human performance workshop, you'd get a health coach that can help coach you through. And, if somebody does have a device, being able to use that device to see how our workshop is actually improving what they're doing. So for us, finding a way to make that work is our next biggest challenge. I think for the wellness industry in general, it's just continuing to prove the worth of that for sure. So hopefully we can help with the device connection.
Super interesting. I know I would be really interested. I go through phases where I'm like working out really healthy, eating really well, and then I go phases where I'm sliding. And I think a lot of people do this. And obviously this podcast is not about my health, but I feel like when I'm in the moment and of making positive choices consistently, I love seeing the results of that. And to the extent that, I've heard of people doing blood testing on a fairly regular basis, or even not to gross you out, but like, stool testing, kind of understanding, what's coming in, what's going out, checking the fluids on a regular basis and seing like,
that's like my language. You're not grossing me out.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting. It might be a little invasive.
I've done it, Brent. So
okay, good. Maybe a little invasive for your average corporate organization. However, if you have high performing people that are on that, path of like they're doing the right things, they're eating, it can be really inspiring and get you into I mean, when I'm in that state where I'm making positive choices, I am way more productive. I'm making, I'm able to do a lot more and obviously be happier. And, the monitoring may also keep me from taking, those slides where, hey, maybe I'll skip working out this day. Maybe I will slide into Burger King for a quick bite, so.
Yeah. I have an Apple Watch, and it's like, if I don't close my rings for one day, that messes up my entire month. So I'm like, I can't do that. It's like bedtime. I'm pacing in my bedroom trying to close my ring, It's interesting though, because I feel like COVID has really brought out the emotional health side of wellness. It's in our industry, we're always trying to prove the value of mental health, and while people know it's there, it's just not anything they're willing to invest in. And, come April, it was the only thing that people were asking for. It was like, we will stop spending on our fitness center and we want to invest in emotional health, So it's been interesting. Like when things like this happen, you just throw everything you have into it and realize you waited too long,
Yeah.
So does your courses change then? So people request more mental health stuff. So do you have a course on just mental health and you forget about sleep or other things?
Yeah, so we do offer some one-off courses. There's definitely clients who, will want to just hear about one topic rather than get the whole human performance course. Our thoughts really are that, it doesn't drive behavior change to listen to one session, right? Just a lunch and learn. You might learn something and make a change, but not really sustainable behavior change. So we'll do it and present on those. But, and I think if anything, it's just to give a client a taste of what we're about and what our presentation style is like, which is super beneficial. But overall, we try to drive the full course.
Makes sense.
Cool.
Any other questions from you, Colin? I mean, I feel like this has been a great conversation to get to know kind of what's going on at Theory Me and, what the future looks like.
Yeah, this has been awesome. Any questions for us, Jackie?
I don't think any questions. I'm just really excited to see like how we can continue to evolve with Avocado. We kind of just jumped in and gave it a shot, and I was really nervous about it. It feels good. So I'm looking forward to seeing, what more we can do there. So thank you guys.
Yeah, I'd say it's been really fun for me to, normally our users are kind of not, I don't have as close of a channel open to them. And it's because it's this enterprise plan, we have a little bit of freedom to like, if you need something built, like have some interplay there. It's like be able to build things. I love that. I mean, that's like my favorite part of this business is like when the things you're changing or making or building or doing to the system are like actually getting used. So it's been a lot of fun for me. So we really appreciate you giving it a shot and, being a little bit of our guinea pig in a way.
Of course. I don't feel like the guinea pig. So
good.
So you guys know, I feel like you've been doing this for a long time.
Good. Yeah. I'm glad to hear. Cool. Well, thanks so much for coming on and chatting with us. Any other closing thoughts, Colin? I mean, we'll probably, to our listeners, each week it's something new, a different topic. I mean, last week we kind of foreshadowed we're going to have our first interview, our first, enterprise customer. But yeah, I think we'll probably head back to the next set of challenges. We got plenty to talk about and keep our listeners up to date as to what we're building at Avocado.
Sounds good. Till next week. Take care.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Thanks so much.